Investor Shed Podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom, and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet. Welcome to the Investor Shed Podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. Today we are analyzing deals live on the Investor Shed Podcast. Is that correct, Nick?
Oh, yeah. What you just said right there, where we're going to analyze deals. Oh, my God. So good. Top 5 things I've ever heard in my life.
Top tier. I want you to know, Nick, I've been in a lot of rooms in my life, and I've never been in a room like this. This is the best room I've ever been in.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. So what you just said, it's so good.
I think we should, for food today, just eat an Ed Milet omelet.
Oh, my Lanta, Ed Milet omelets. Can you repeat that for me?
Ed Milet omelet.
Wow, what Nick just said is life-changing, everyone. This will change your life. If you would take what Nick says, this will change your life.
So good. So good. You're going to love this episode. We guarantee it. And welcome back to the Investor Shed Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Beveridge, with the one and only co-host, the dad of the hour.
Listen, Nick, I need you to get a little bit more excitement for this episode.
Oh, okay.
We're doing so great, everyone. Welcome to the Investor Shed Podcast. Jeremy Kitchen, as Nick Beveridge previously mentioned. Today, we have a very special episode for you. Every episode's very special. I'm going to say that every episode, but I really think this one is special. We're going to be analyzing some deals live on the Investor Shed Podcast today. Isn't that right, Nick?
Yes. Analysis time. That's how I remember to spell it.
Nick's activating his RAS today and figuring out ways to remember how to spell analysis. So
yes.
Stick with him and stick with us, and we're gonna analyze some deals today. Quick housekeeping, of course. If you found this episode useful, please leave us 5-star review on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts. Check out our YouTube channel as well, and you'll find all the Investor Shed episodes there as well. Anything else you want to add before we kind of dive deep, Nick?
Yeah, if you are listening to this on audio only, I do apologize. We're going to be heavily using our screen sharing abilities and showing you the tools that we're using as we live analyze deals that we already analyzed just recently.
We did, yeah. We took a little bit of the legwork out of it just so we weren't sitting there trying to plug numbers in and making a boring podcast. So we kind of pre-analyzed these deals, but there's a lot to unpack with these two that we chose on the market. And that's something specifically that we're talking about. These are on-market deals we are looking at in our location.
They're on the MLS right now.
Yep, they're on the MLS right now.
Too. So what we wanted to do is just see, do they make sense as is? Mm-hmm. Would they have to have lower offers to make sense? Yada, yada, yada. So what we did was we took one new construction property in Post Falls, and we just assumed we're paying full price.
Yep.
And this is what it would look like if you got a loan and kept it for 30 years as a rental and then sold it 30 years later.
Yeah.
The next one is a fix and flip, something also in Post Falls, just hit the market about 10 days ago. Mm-hmm. And we're assuming that you did your research and you cannot pay full price, but this is what you can pay, and this is what the numbers would look like if you did a traditional fix and flip. So we'll dive in, huh?
Yeah, let's make it happen. I love it.
Yes, here we go. We're going to start with a screen share.
All right, and if you are listening to this on audio, we are going to be presenting everything like Nick said on the video, but we're going to be talking about the numbers too. So we're going to try to make it make sense if you're listening as well, with purchase prices, what you should be offering, what the house kind of looks like, and we'll give you a visual representation through your ear holes.
Ear holes, ear holes, ear holes. All right, guys. So here's the first one.
You screen sharing?
I'm screen sharing.
All right, let's go.
Yep. So this one is at 1374 North Wollaston. Mm-hmm. Am I saying that correctly?
Wollaston?
Wollaston?
Yeah, sure.
It is built by Viking Construction. Mm-hmm. Guess what, Jeremy? I bought a new construction Viking home once in 2016.
Okay.
2017? 2017. Maybe it was 2018. My gosh, I'm so sorry, guys. It was 2018. But I bought a brand new construction. I did a deal similar to this when prices were a little bit lower. Okay. Interest rates were lower. And it was awesome. I wish I would have kept it. I kept it for a year.
Yeah.
But I did something just like this where I bought from the same builder a smaller new construction home, and I just rented it out.
Yeah.
And I got a traditional financing. I wasn't creative about it at all. I just went to a lender, put 25% down, 20% down. And I just needed a place to park some cash, and it was a it was one of the better investments I've ever made.
That's awesome. My wife and I bought a Viking home as well, brand new construction, and I love it. It's a solid home. Everything works fine, other than the things we broke.
Yeah. And Viking, they're not known for their like quality of construction at all, but they are known for being like a great entry level home.
Absolutely.
And these days, in the 2020s, the city's not going to let you build crap. No matter how much a builder tries to build crap quality, they cannot do it. The city won't let them. They inspect every process or every item that's going into the house pretty much. So it's just virtually impossible to build a crappy home these days.
Sure.
No matter how hard a builder tries.
Right. And everything's up to code and everything like that. So they're still a pretty solid builder, I would say.
Yeah. Unless, of course, you are building in, let's say, Bonner County, where there's only a site sign off and there's no actual inspections by a building department.
Gotcha. Okay.
Usually there's just like plumbing or HVAC and electric type of inspections, but nothing else.
Check your county records. Check your county, folks.
So be cautious if you're hearing me and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to go buy something in Bonner's Ferry that's new construction. Probably didn't have the same amount of inspections on that property that like a city property like this would. So the reason I picked this property to look over is because it was the cheapest 3-bedroom, 2-bath new construction property I can find in Kootenai County. And this is it. It's been on the market for 56 days. It is a to be built. To be built means that it's not built yet.
Yes.
They say you can build this house on this lot for this much. Who wants to come make an offer and then we'll build it?
Yeah.
That's what they're basically saying. And it's in a great subdivision, Montrose.
Montrose is very great for sure.
It's actually a really nice, really nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
They've got neighborhood parties. I live in a similar neighborhood in Coeur d'Alene called Coeur d'Alene Place. It's basically a spit and mirror image, only in Post Falls. And it's, that community is also Greenstone's in there.
Yep.
I don't know who other builders, but
yeah, most of it's pretty new construction for the most part, like Nick said, and it's just a good neighborhood. Solid. There's parks around and everything like that too, so it's a good neighborhood for your kids and your family. Even though I'm not a realtor, I can't say that on MLS. But
yeah, another reason why I grabbed this as an example is because it is going to be a house that is easily rentable.
Yes.
When you have a rental, you still have a product to sell. You can't just buy a house and make money immediately. You have to have something to sell to a tenant. A tenant. You only make money on a rental if a tenant pays you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a property like this, typically you can attract tenants that will pay you.
Yep.
So, we'll just look at the photos real quick too. There's not much there, but basic kitchen.
Yep. And like Nick said, this is a house to be built, so these photos aren't exactly what you see, but you'll get something typically kind of like this when you purchase. It's the same layout and everything like that. So
yeah. The couple of things that you will have to spend extra money on that unfortunately, I'm sorry, we forgot to put in our spreadsheet. You'll need a refrigerator and a backyard, like some grass in the backyard.
Yep.
So maybe you have a leftover fridge somewhere and maybe you can go plant some seeds. But those are typically two things that you do not get in a new construction, but it looks like it's got almost everything else.
Cool.
There's also current incentives to build. Now, we don't have that included, so maybe you can get a fridge. Anyway, here we go. Now, the tool that I love to use on rental properties is Bigger Pockets.
Yes.
Bigger Pockets has the best calculators online that I've seen that show you a 30-year breakdown of what's going on. But there's still things that aren't in there, such as like depreciation, extra benefits of owning real estate because everybody's tax situation is a little bit different.
Sure.
But, so here's what we got. We already pre-filled a lot of this out, and this is why we filled it out this way. So we went to the tools section in Bigger Pockets. We went to the rental property calculator. As you can see, there's all these other calculators you can use, but I feel like this one gives the most value. And maybe that's why it's on the top.
Yeah.
So we put in the address. Sometimes it will pre-populate some. It didn't in this scenario because it's new construction. Maybe the address isn't pulling up yet. We're assuming we're paying a full price.
Yep.
And when it says purchase closing costs, what does this mean? That means how much money, in addition to the purchase price, do you have to bring to closing? And what we've got here is $6,000. Most of that is going to be towards paying lender fees because we're getting a loan on this.
Yes.
We can break that down for you, but it's better if you have a lender break it down, because some lenders actually don't charge much. If you buy a house with Keller Williams Realty and you use Keller Mortgage, this could potentially be zero because they even pay the appraisal.
Nice.
But we're assuming you're using most lenders charge something to close.
Sure.
So we've got about $6,000 here in closing costs. Now the loan details, we're going to put 20% down, and that is $75,000.
Right. And the reason why we're putting 20% down, obviously, is because it can go conventional that way, and it's not like an FHA mortgage. We're planning on this being an investment property.
Yes.
This is not one you are living in, so this is one you're putting, your 25% down to get a conventional mortgage on so you could rent out day one.
Yes. And I'm putting in a pretty realistic rate in here. Now, you may be looking at this, and you may be looking at the date, and you're like, dude, rates aren't that high. 7.125. And what I did was I took the current rates that are being advertised right now. That was just emailed to me within the last week. I went with a conventional fixed rate. And as you can see, this is a half a point less. It's 6.6. Rates have been coming down. But the reason why I put a half a point higher in here is because I've gotten loans before on investment properties, and they do not give you advertised. There's a higher risk when you get an investment loan. So it's usually a half a point to a point higher sometimes, depending on your credit and your experience and all that stuff. But it's typically never what they advertise. So I'm throwing in an extra 0.5% here to be realistic, because this is an investor loan.
Sure.
It's not the same as it doesn't have the same risk, lower risk as a owner occupied home. Typically, investment type properties have a higher foreclosure rate than owner occupied.
For sure.
So not much we can do to control that. Let's just put in what's realistic.
Sure. And I think that's important that you're realistic here, Nick, because if you try to skimp on some of these numbers just to make a deal work, and you'll find out like a lot of these, you can toggle a lot of these areas to be like, oh, maybe I can make this deal work if I did this. Just be realistic and honest with what you think it is. And that's going to give you the best output of numbers towards the end.
True. All right. We're going with a 30-year loan. Now you may be thinking, hey, why not do a 15? Because you'll definitely save money over the time of the loan. You're 100% right. But what you can do instead is get a 30-year loan and then make payments as if you had a 15-year mortgage, and you'll save almost as much money. Sometimes, yes, the interest rates are a little bit lower if you get a 15 at first, but you'll save a hell of a lot of interest if you make payments as if it were a 15. But it's always nice to have the option, if you're in rough times and you don't want to make a larger payment, to be able to have a little bit extra time there. Okay, now $2,100 for rental income is what I put in here. I got that by going through this tool called Rentometer. Rentometer is going to give it a much better guess than I would shooting from the hip. Now I've seen, I think they're actually pretty accurate here, because I've seen these types of homes rent for close to $3,000 a month during the times when everybody was moving here in 2021, 2022, early 2022, and then like mid 2022, and for about a year, rents just started crashing. We started having a lot more inventory, a lot more investors were buying newer construction homes and renting them out, and they seem to fall in this $2,000 a month price point for something like this. I would go with the upper end since it's a new construction property.
Right.
And we're just going to figure it's going to rent for $2,100 a month. We think that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
From the research we've done.
That's very reasonable. And I mean,
This
obviously,
could always go up.
Just since we're in the area too, like even before analyzing it, like in my head, I'm like, this one would probably rent for $2,000 to $2,200.
Yeah. So we're going in the middle there.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Back to that. So we put in $2,100. Now, this does have optional income growth, 2%. We feel is reasonable too. You can probably up the rent by $40 a year.
Yep.
I think it's something you definitely should do. Dave Ramsey says you should do it.
Yeah. If Dave Ramsey says you should do it, take investing advice from that for sure.
Yeah. Rent every year, and that way people expect it. And you're moving it up with average inflation, and this is actually lower inflation. This is 2%.
Yep.
So we're moving the price up every year by 2%. Property taxes, we've got that at $2,000 annually, so it broke it down monthly here. We've got the insurance at $500 annually. I'm sure you can get a better deal.
Yep.
New construction home, but we're being conservative again. Now, here's where you might be cringing. I did throw in a savings. Now, it's showing as an expense, but it's basically money that you're pocketing in a savings account to save up for repairs and maintenance and capital expenditures and vacancy on this new construction home that's probably going to rent out immediately.
Right.
And probably not going to have any repair issues for 10 years.
Right. I think you're right there, Nick, but honestly, like, I think you're also right with putting these numbers in there because these are to be expected eventually. And I think if you can start getting your pocketbooks and your systems in place in order to rent it out the way it should be rented out, with property management, capital expenditures, vacancy, like, you're going to be setting yourself up really well for the long run. It's not going to look good on paper, of course, but you are making good habits out of actually analyzing a rental deal.
Yeah, you're taking your business seriously by saving up proper amount of money that will eventually have to come out. The good news is when you buy a new construction property, you get to pocket all this money and make the interest maybe in a separate high yield account or something like that until those events eventually come where, hey, it's been 15, 20 years and we need a new roof.
Right.
Or it's been maybe the roof lasts 30 years. Or those kind of items. The water heater finally broke. It's been 15, 20 years. Water heater is going to be $1,000. Yep. Now, the problem is if you just spend all your money and then 15 years later, then you have all these expenses popping up, you're not going to be able to save enough cash flow to pay for those.
Yes.
So that's why you'll want to save your own money somewhere else, the way you don't touch it for when these capital expenditures do eventually come. So we've got in here on the low end for repairs and maintenance, 2%. Like, we're putting away $42 a month.
Yeah.
In vacancy, you probably won't have a new construction home like this vacant very long,
Right.
but we're figuring one whole month per year, it's empty, no tenants are paying you.
Yeah. And that sounds reasonable to me, if your tenant moves out early or if they stay an extra month and you go month to month after that, just you plan on there being a little bit of a layover period between when one tenant leaves and the next tenant arrives.
Yeah. But what's likely to happen is the tenant will stay for 2 to 5 years.
Yep.
At a time in a property like this.
Yep.
But still, when it comes to turnover, it's not like somebody's moving in the next day unless you really got your systems dialed in, which could happen. Mm-hmm. If a tenant gives you, a notice 2 years in, hey, I'm going to be moving next month. You're like, great. I'm going to be showing the properties 2 weeks from now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start advertising it now. And I have every right to.
Yep.
And
it's my house. I can do whatever I please.
So you could get ahead of your vacancy.
You can,
and
yes.
just have your systems dialed in, and you can get ahead of that vacancy.
Yep.
All right. Management. Now, you may self-manage, but you'll still want to put away that money. 8% a month, I think, is appropriate to pay a manager. And if you're managing it yourself, maybe you have an LLC where you have this other company and you're in the habit of paying a manager, and it might actually work better off for your taxes.
Right.
So whether that money is coming to you or a manager, you should be budgeting for management fees.
100%.
And I've just got a little bit in here for electricity, just in case you do have those once a year month electric bills. So
right.
We're saving maybe, a couple $100 for the year for some utilities that the tenants won't be paying when there's no tenants.
Yeah. And you can see there we left garbage, water, sewer, everything like that blank because in this case, we're assuming the tenant is going to be paying for these. And that's something you should be very much assuming when you're doing a rental, especially on a single-family property. They should have all the utilities in their name, their own internet. They should be paying their own garbage. Like, that should not come out of your pocket.
All right. So we clicked the Analyze button, and this is what we got. We are technically losing $631 a month in cash flow. Now, remember, almost $500 of that you're just pocketing yourselves. So maybe you're really actually losing $130 or so a month. But this is a cash-on-cash return of negative almost 10%.
Right.
Here's something that's not included in here that's pretty large, and that's depreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And depreciation doesn't include any other tax benefits that you may get, such as interest deductions. You're going to get those. Yep. But I mean, just your depreciation alone is close to $11,000 a year on a property like this, where you're paying almost close to 400 grand. And the building itself, you get to depreciate over 27 and a half years. So you basically take the value of the building, which we'll call it 300,000, divide that by 27 and a half. And you've got just shy of 11,000 a year that you get to depreciate.
Yeah.
Pretty large. So this works great for those that have a cash problem, where they need to, let's say I'm a doctor and I make a lot of annual income. This can be a good tax shelter.
Sure.
Because not all that money's going away. You're buying yourself a house over the next 30 years too.
Right.
So if you did nothing, let's say you never refinance this property. Let's say rates never come down. Right? Unlikely, but rates never come down. Hey, quick commercial break here. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. If you want to give back, let me help you buy a house, or I can help you sell a house. It's the only way I make money when I'm not investing in real estate. I don't make money on this podcast or the events I do, but I do make money only when I help people buy and sell houses. So if you're looking for your next investment and you're here in North Idaho, I want to help you personally. If you are not in North Idaho, I can still help you out. I have a vast network of referral partners all across the country in Keller Williams Realty, and I can find the right real estate investor savvy agent for you so you don't have to. It doesn't cost you a thing. Thank you for your support. Back to the show. In this projection, if you held it for 30 years, you're still going to make over $500,000 in profit when you go to sell it in 30 years, assuming nothing changes and you don't improve on the cash flow ever.
Right.
Not bad if you hold it for that long, but if you only hold it for the first year, you're losing money. Like if you have to sell the next year, you're going to lose money in your selling cost.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the play on this one, and we're kind of talking about it right here too, but the play on this one is a long-term play. This is not something that's a fix and flip. This is not something that, you're going to try to offload in the first 1 to 5 years. Maybe after year 5, you could make a little bit of profit. It says there you'd make 18,000, but after you pay sellers, closing costs and stuff like that, like you're probably going to be breaking even in between years 1 and 10 for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's assume that you want to put a little more down.
Yeah.
Let's say, hey, I don't really, I've got more cash I can put in. I don't like the idea of losing money and interest, even though a lot of this is going to my pocket, but how much do I have to put down for this thing to actually make money every month?
Yeah.
Well, let's say you put 50% down. You're making money at 50%. Let's say 55. You're pretty much even if you put 55% down.
Right.
So let's call it 50. You're putting 100, what is it, 150 grand?
193,500 is what it said.
So we're assuming that we're still saving money for all these expenses, the property management, your capital expenditures, replacing the roof over time, your repairs, vacancy, that kind of stuff. You put half down, the numbers start to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
That it's a decent, this is a higher return annually with half down with leverage on a high interest rate than just having money sit in an account.
Sure.
Making you, bank interest rates. That's when this starts to make even more sense,
Right.
$721,000 in profit. Now, this is above your purchase price.
Sure.
Over the course of 30 years. And this is still assuming that you never refinance.
Right. And this is also assuming that, it says rental income is $2,100. So your rental income has not changed in 30 years, which would be insane if that did not happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let's say I'm a manager and that's just like what I do. You take away the management fees and then you can see, okay, I'll make a lot more.
Yep.
So you can play with this. I love playing with this.
Yeah.
And just, getting a real good idea how math works over time.
Yep.
It's a great tool that Bigger Pockets has, and it's free for the first 5 usage.
Your first 5 are free on Bigger Pockets. If not, you just get the Bigger Pockets Pro. It's like $350 a year.
It's worth it.
It's absolutely worth it. You get unlimited deal analyzing tools. While we're still here, though, Nick, I want to go down to that rental income real quick.
Sure.
So we're still at $2,100. So go up a little bit. On the left where the green one is. Let's raise that up to $2,500 a month and see what happens. Just assuming that, in 10 years, maybe it goes up a little bit.
Yeah.
Now how much?
Now, do we still have 50% down?
Yeah.
50% down.
I just want to see how much, $400 a month for the life of the loan changes how much money you're going to make.
And let's say you hire a property manager.
Yep. Let's do that.
Okay. Now, for the life of the loan, the product, if you sell in 30 years, $882,000.
Yeah.
But your cash flow, you're making money.
Right.
You got $450 a month.
Right. And that's why, location matters for sure, because this we're analyzing deals in Post Falls, and historically it's been 6% annualized interest or annualized.
Yeah, that's something I forgot.
Yeah.
We're being conservative there. We didn't mention that, but we adjusted the appreciation of the property down a little bit from what the 30-year average has been in Kootenai County. The 30-year average has been over 6%, and we brought that down to 4.5%.
Yeah. And again, that's a conservative number. Obviously, when you see rental numbers like, okay, I'm probably not going to get $2,500 a month, for the first 5 to 10 years. But eventually, like, that mortgage or that rent goes up, your mortgage payment stays the same and is going down because it's getting a pay down on it.
We're back.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back.
Thank you for looking at that screen. If you stuck in for that long, we'll go and do another deal here shortly. But let's just recap.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I bought a newer construction property like this before, and then we've actually had lots of clients, Joe and I, over time, that have bought new construction properties in Post Falls, Rathdrum, Hayden, and they seem to be really solid rental investments that they attract great tenants for the most part. And because they're newer, there's just less repairs to do.
Yep.
And as long as you keep up on, changing out that furnace filter and make sure that you have crawl space vents when it becomes negative 15 out.
Yep. We learn the hard way up here sometimes.
Crawl space vent covers, sorry. The foam ones. There's little things that could just make an investment like that pretty solid.
Right. So I got to ask on this one, Nick. This deal being presented exactly the way it is, so you had 20% down. Would you buy it right now?
If that was all, so no, not me. Just because I'm in a position where I'm looking at deals every day, and I've seen better.
Yep.
But for somebody,
I've also seen worse.
yeah, it depends. For somebody who just wants kind of like a solid home in a solid county with a solid track history of appreciation. And we still have, like, if you were to look at the U-Haul reports, Idaho is still ranked number 6 in the whole country of all states of people coming inbound.
Yep.
And I believe that Post Falls still has a lot of growing up to do.
It does,
and,
yeah.
And they want to.
It's Coeur d'Alene's little brother, but it's trying to come along right along, so for sure. And that's why I asked him, like this deal, like, it wouldn't make sense for me unless I had, $180,000, $190,000 to drop on something. But to be honest with you, like, if I had that money, like, would I buy a single family home? And the answer is maybe. It just depends, because I'm not quite that cash liquid right now. But I would also look at, like, apartments.
Yeah. But you already bought a home like this.
I did, yes.
Yeah. So have I. So I guess, we're saying we wouldn't buy that deal.
Right.
But we bought very similar deals.
Yes.
Just at a little lower price points when interest rates were a little bit lower.
Right. And that's something, like we said, this is assuming interest rates never come down on this deal, so they're always going to be at the 7.2 or 7.1 like we talked about. Say interest rates go down to 4. Could happen.
Yeah.
I'm not counting on that, of course, but if it could, at that point, you could refinance and, like, you're going to be saving a ton of money.
Yeah, it's pretty much only upside as long as you are paying attention to what you're doing and managing it well and making sure that the property is kept up with.
Yeah.
But you also, with your finances, just make sure that you're always shopping the insurance rate. There's not much you can do about the taxes, but you can definitely do things about, that interest rate and what you're paying annually by just dumping more cash into it. So that's, most loans that you get most 30-year fixed loans don't have a prepayment penalty.
Right.
So you can work on just making extra payments over time. And I just think for me, it's a better investment to buy something like that than to stick money into a retirement account.
Sure. I see the benefit of both, but yeah, that one, the real estate is definitely where it's at for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting property, and I hope it works out for somebody whoever ends up buying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So shall we talk about a fix and flip?
Yeah, let's talk about the fix and flip there,
Guys
lad.
ready to move on? Because you're going to have to wait for me to fill up this cup.
We will wait patiently.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone for waiting. We appreciate you.
Maybe it was a good time for a commercial break.
We'll be right back after these messages, even though we don't have any.
Oh, I do now.
Oh, you do?
I've been putting them in
Wow.
the last couple of episodes.
Okay.
Sneak them in there.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, everybody. It's only a 1 minute long. Okay. Screen share. Here we go.
All right. This is the second deal we are going to analyze today.
Here it is.
Pulled up right here. So we're at 103 West 20th Avenue in Post Falls, Idaho.
Yep.
Purchase price looks like it's $399 for a 1.5, over 2,000 square feet, built in 1969. Looks like a pretty solid home, Nick.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the photos.
Ooh.
Oh, gosh. All right. So it's actually a decent area of Post Falls. It's pretty close to Spokane Street, which I don't love, but it's still in an area that's like a great spot at Post Falls with a lot of maturity, bigger lots.
We got some schools over there too, which is nice.
Good schools. Yep. Let's see. So they've got the washer dryer in the hookups in the kitchen, which I immediately see them and be like, got to move that somewhere.
That's got to go.
You see the popcorn ceiling, got to do something about that.
Got to go.
The blue countertops and the hardware finishes, should probably change those out. But those cabinets look like they could be saved.
Yeah, no, everything looks like it's like structurally sound, at least in the kitchen for sure. And like you said, get rid of those the cabinet hardware.
Yep.
Nice paint job. Maybe redo the countertops, of course, because those are pretty ugly.
Yeah, maybe relocate that. So if it were me, I maybe possibly think about relocating that fridge because it's just in a weird spot there. Usually that should probably go right over here.
Yeah, I was going to say, put that where the washer and dryer goes.
Dryer hookups are. And then that way you have a little bit more counter space there. Anyway, something to think about. But change out, scrape that popcorn ceiling, change out light fixtures, change out the flooring.
Yeah, new carpets
that
for
fireplace. You don't necessarily want to tear something like that out, but maybe you can paint those bricks like a white or a gray, something modern.
I've seen that look really good on a lot of fix and flips you've done.
Thank you.
We actually did it on Violet.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
A lot of the cabinetry in here you can just paint like a white.
Yeah.
A lot of the doors you can just paint white, assuming that you do a good job. Change out the hardware from that like old brass stuff to a black. You can buy a lot of hardware on Amazon these days, and it's like a fraction of the price of Lowe's or Home Depot. So I've been using Amazon a lot to buy little things, and I've been saving a hell of a lot of money that way.
Man, those carpets and floors are just... They're bad.
This bathroom, it looks like that shower back there maybe might need a new insert. Maybe it's fine. What I like to do is, in a house like this, try to get, and I'd have to walk through it to see what it's like, but one of these, clearly there's potentially 3 bedrooms upstairs. You really want a master bedroom that has an ensuite, and that's something that's potentially doable because there's a good amount of square footage. And then you've got a basement too. There's about 1,000 square feet upstairs, about 1,000 down. They have about 80% of the basement finished. It's a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath. So I would consider somewhere adding an extra bathroom, maybe upstairs. So you have a 4-2 or 4-2.5.
Hey, there's washer and dryer downstairs too.
Yep, I saw that too. So you don't need to relocate the washer dryer hookups. Are already downstairs. You basically just need to abandon them up in the kitchen and put that fridge back.
Yeah.
Looks like maybe you can use a privacy fence or something in the backyard. Looks like the yard's in good shape. That's good. That actually costs a lot of money to fix up landscaping.
Yeah.
So looks like maybe you can patch this crack out here or something like that, or tear out and repour this concrete. Just by looking at it, and maybe potentially some of the windows might have to be replaced, to maybe the slider, because they potentially look like aluminum windows.
Right. Built in 1969, like I said, so I'm sure they're not original, but they look pretty old, and they could definitely use some vinyl window modernizing.
Something to be concerned with, and I don't know if I would do this on a flip on this one, but you got a 1-car garage here, and it's ideally in North Idaho, you want a 2-car garage.
Yeah.
But I think you can probably get away with the one here just because of the location and all this extra parking.
Yeah.
You could potentially extend this out and add a second, stall for a 2-car garage.
We can make it RV parking over there if you wanted to.
Yeah. Something like this, from what I can my gut instincts is that it's going to be about a $60,000 renovation to get it up to the comps. Now, we looked at this as a pretty good comp. It was a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,200 square feet in the similar area, built in 72.
Yep.
And somebody bought it for $509, and they got a VA loan.
And they bought it last year in August. That's what it said. Okay.
So let me show you here. Now, they didn't do much about the popcorn ceiling, but they changed out some of the light fixtures, you can see, for cheaper fixtures. That kitchen, that looks like the original kitchen cabinets that they just painted and put new hardware on. They've got new appliances, and those countertops are actually kind of cheap ones. I'd like to go quartz. I think it's important to spend a little extra money in the kitchen if you're trying to get close to $500,000.
Yeah. Flooring's okay.
Yeah, the flooring's okay. It looks like they kept some of the flooring here. Actually, I don't think this house was flipped or anything.
Yeah.
People are just living there. But this is one of the higher end ones in this. So what I did to search and filter out comps is I searched in this grid, this area of Post Falls, and I looked for 4-bedroom homes or larger, like 1,800 to 2,200 square feet, 2,300 square feet, sorry, with similar layouts. Something that sold in the last year, and a year built between like 1960, 1989 to try to get a similar utility type of home.
Right.
So we can make, what I try to do is I look at a comp and see how can I make it better looking, and try to be priced a little bit better. Now, because we have a 1-car garage and this one has a 2, I think, based off the other comps, we're not going to go through them all, we should be able to sell our house for about $485,000 after we fix it up. So we need just a couple of things to do a full good deal analysis. You need to know what your after repair value is. I'll switch back here.
Yeah.
Hold on, so we can see each other.
I just want to see you. That's all I want.
I want to see you.
I want to see you seeing me in the camera.
Here's a couple of numbers that you need for a flip. Not much, but you do need to take some time in figuring out if they're accurate. You need to know what is the after repair value, what's realistically the after repair value after you fix it up, what should it sell for,
right?
Not with any optimism.
Right. And that's where your 485 comes in, right? Based off your comps. So
it could probably sell for 500. We're going to say 485.
Yeah. I try to be really conservative with my ARVs for sure. Like, or, sell prices for sure. Like, I don't want to be just like the most optimistic guy. Like, oh, I plan on this selling for 600. Like, the fuck it will, man.
Well, and the problem is, a project like this could take 6 to 8 months.
Yep.
And in 6 to 8 months, the market could be different. You could have totally different comps. You could have better comps at better prices. Maybe other people are trying to do the same and try to be priced under the competition, because we are kind of in a weird spot where the market's kind of going down and up and staying steady, but in a very micro level. But you don't want to assume, like we have in the years past, where, hey, this house is going to be worth 10% next year, even if I don't do shit.
Right.
It's not that way anymore.
We got kicked in the balls the last couple of years for assuming that. So,
so prices have been more consistent across the board the last year or so, which is actually good. It's actually more predictable, I think.
It gives you a better beacon to kind of search for in the haystack, basically.
Yeah. So you need to know that after repair value, and then you need to have a really good idea, what is it going to cost you to improve? What is it going to cost you to get to that after repair value, repair cost?
Yep.
So as long as you have those two numbers, you can do an analyst. Of course, you're going to need other numbers, but those are more fixed numbers.
Yeah, you can kind of reverse engineer with those two numbers. So.
Yeah. So let's go back to sharing.
Bye-bye.
So you're going to want to go to if you don't already have some sort of a fix and flip calculator, you can simply go to our website, northidahorei.com. This is what the homepage will look like. It's got myself. I'm all pretty with my partner, Joe, who, I've got to carry. No, I'm just kidding. Joking, Joe.
We love Joe.
Click on the free tools tab. And there's that rental property analyzer. I like the Bigger Pockets one better, but this one's cool too. It's got little different features. There's the rehab calculator, and that's the one I want. So you click on it, and it will just download. As you'll notice, what's kind of cool on our website, you can click and download something without us like, hey, give me your name and number and email.
I think that's a missed opportunity for you, but
it's a missed opportunity, sure. But we like to,
y'all give out a ton of free value,
free stuff.
Yep.
Without asking.
And it's actually a really good spreadsheet. I use it all the time as well. So we actually we plugged in some numbers here, and you'll see the purchase price is a little bit different than what it said on the website. So the
quite
website
a bit different.
Was it $399? Yep, $399.
It almost doesn't matter what the list price is, and that's what you guys got to understand.
Yeah.
When you're analyzing a fix and flip, it's more like, okay, is this a potential fix and flip? It looks like there's maybe some motivation with the seller. Okay, what should this property be worth fixed up? And we got our comps, and we found 485 is a realistic number. And then we found $60,000 in improvement costs, repair costs. So what we do is we take the number of 485,000 and we multiply that by 0.7.
Yep.
Take 30% off, basically. And then we subtract our repair costs as well. When we did that, we got this maximum allowable offer of $279.
Now I'm going to pause you right there, Nick. So you take that after repair value and then you times it by 0.7. Why do you do that?
Because you need about a 30% margin to make room for holding cost, your profit.
Yep.
Unexpected repairs, unexpected holding cost. You need a 30% margin to make about 15% profit.
Yes. Yeah. And I knew that, of course. I just wanted you to explain it. So, like, you always times it by a little bit more because you're giving yourself those, A, closing costs, B, profit, and you're just giving yourself a little bit of a cushion in case anything goes wrong.
It's also called a 70% deal.
Yep.
That's in the world of like wholesaling and fix and flips. If, you're talking to people and you just say, oh, what kind of deal are you looking for? I need a 70% or better in order for me to do my thing.
It's pretty common.
And then people should know what that means is if the after repair value is 485 and you need to get 30% off that minus whatever the repair costs are for you to move forward with a deal like that.
Yep.
So unfortunately, this deal, $399, sounds attractive. A lot of square feet in Post Falls. Looks like just like a cosmetic for the most part, but the realistic figure that you should really pay or less is $279,000. Now that's a slap in the face to the seller that listed it for $400,000.
Yep.
I can pay $279,000, but this is why. So this is assuming that we're getting a hard money loan because you're good luck getting any other kind of loan for a property like this if you're fixing and flipping.
Right.
And this is assuming that you're paying 10% annual interest only and 3 points up front. Very typical in hard money,
Yeah,
right?
that's pretty typical for sure.
This is also assuming that you're putting 20% down. So a 20% down when it comes to the purchase price. So you basically purchase price
And rehab.
Yep. So we basically add up $60,000 plus $279,000 and then 20% of that.
Yeah, so $339 was the number we came up with for those, and then 20% of that was
$78,000. So $78,000. Now you need to have more cash too.
Yes.
Because you need to be able to make the payments.
Yep, you'll have
make
holding
the
costs for the
taxes,
hard money.
Make the insurance, make the utility payments, blah, 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 lawn care, other kind of stuff. Your holding cost that we project is $22,000. Now we're probably getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit because we're skipping the spreadsheet, but just so you know, you're going to need in cash closer to $100,000
Right.
to make this work. So we put in our purchase price up here on the top. Then what's already kind of pre-filled for you is inspection cost, appraisal cost, This is not pre-filled in your lender fees and closing costs. I think it's initially $6,000, but
Yeah.
we're assuming that we're getting, paying 3 points on that loan amount. And then there's another, let's say $1,500. This is also kind of pre-filled in for other random, escrow fees that you're going to be splitting with the seller when you go to close, and maybe anything else that is going to be in there for the purchased expenses. I took that 60 grand and just divided it in two. It's probably going to be about 30 grand of labor and about 30 grand of materials. Here's the mortgage payments. This is assuming that we are going 8 months for the start to finish.
Yep.
So we're assuming that, let's say, we're purchasing the property and it takes maybe 5 months to fix up. That sounds like a long time, but it could easily take somebody 4 or 5 months to fix up. Then you're like, well, why are you calculating for 8 months? Well, you need time to sell it.
Yeah. Sits on the market for a little bit and then it's got to close. So like that typically takes 45 days or something like that?
Yeah, 90.
90? Okay,
Something like that. Because it could fall out of contract and you got to sell it again. So you got to budget for like almost 3 months of holding cost for just trying to sell it after it's fixed up, because it's very likely, 40% of deals usually fall out of escrow. So that's a high likelihood of you taking longer than a 45-day close. You market it for a couple of weeks, you get it under contract, and then it's sold within 30 days from there. That is typical.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you got to budget for 90.
I think that's a safe cushion to budget for, Nick.
Yeah.
And the reason why you do this, like I said, is so you don't shoot yourself in the foot later. Like as soon as you're done with your flip or as soon as you're done with your project, like it takes time to do these things.
Yeah.
And if you're not budgeting for that time, you will end up paying out of pocket for it. So
yeah, because you're doing a lot to the house and then you're reselling it. It just takes more time than everybody always thinks. So you might as well budget for a realistic time estimate, which is 8 months for fix and flip. Now this is pre-filled for you depending on whatever you put for your sell price. So this is our after repair value. $485,000 is what we're going to sell it for. Now, when you put that in, automatically that real estate commission of 6% goes to both brokerages, is calculated for you. That's already in there. You're assuming that you're paying maybe a buyer home warranty, which is, I would absolutely recommend just getting a warranty on a fix and flip for a buyer. That way, maybe they're not always calling you anytime something goes wrong.
Yeah.
They're calling the warranty company. And then, in a market like this, where there's a lot of seller credits going on, people want rate buy downs, that kind of stuff, we're assuming that we're going to pay about 2.5% to the buyer for closing cost assistance, rate buy down, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So that's already kind of pre-filled in there. If you're not going to offer that, you could take it out, but it's safe to estimate this stuff.
Yeah.
And be on the conservative end. And then the better you do throughout the transaction and negotiation, this number can only maybe get better.
Right.
And then this is also pre-filled out for you too.
Yeah.
What is your seller's closing cost? Now this is based off the purchase or the sales price. Your seller closing costs, which include your title commitment and escrow fees, and that kind of stuff. It's usually about 0.75%. And so you'll see that up there, that it's multiplying it by 0.0075. And that's a little over on a transaction like this, where you're almost at 500,000. It's about $3,600 is realistic for a seller to pay in closing costs that go to the title company,
right,
for title insurance and escrow, and maybe some deed recording.
Sure.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, that sounds pretty accurate, Nick.
And then this number right here that says profit, the yellow one, that's the important one to look at. Is this going to be worth it to you? If you are going to invest 100 grand of your own money and maybe 8 months of time, whether you're fixing it up or somebody else, is it going to be worth it to you for potentially, $65,000 to $70,000 in profit to invest 100 grand of your cash?
Yeah. And that's assuming obviously you get your 100 grand invested back, of course. So that's on top of all of the money you put in.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those that don't understand, wait, I put in all that money, I'm only getting 67. No, that's on top of getting all your money back.
Right.
So you've already invested 100 grand. So you basically, you came into this deal with 100 grand, you walk away with 170.
Yep.
8 months later. Now, would you do that? Is it worth it to you? I'm going to stop sharing now.
Okay.
Is a deal like that worth it to you, Jeremy? Would you do that deal?
That would depend, Nick. Honestly, that would be one where I would consider partnering on if we got it at the right price.
Yeah, if you were able to buy it for just like that,
right,
for $270,000, is that a deal that you would do?
Yeah, I mean, if it's something where we put in $50,000 each, and we end up making $30,000 each on top of what we put in, I'd consider it.
Okay.
And again, like you look at this, and a lot of people I think are going to be watching this, looking at the purchase price and thinking it's insulting. It's really not. And the buyer's agent might flip you some shit for submitting such a low offer, but you can even show them your spreadsheet. Like, hey, if I need to make money on this, which I plan to make money on this, I'm running a business here. Here's kind of my numbers to make money in order to get any sort of profit on it. Like, you have no problem sharing that numbers with those stuff. Just open up a conversation with them.
Just say, hey, based off, I want to make my 20%, and on a property like this, I believe it would sell for this fixed up. I can make an offer at this. You don't have to write up a full offer and send it to an agent, but just say, hey, Mr. Agent, I see your seller has got a property there that looks like it's prime for a fixer. Just that it's priced a little bit high for that to make sense.
Yeah,
I can totally purchase it for $280 cash tomorrow.
Yeah,
would or 10 days from now I can close.
Sure.
Would your seller have any interest at that price, or
Yeah.
should I just go pound sand right now?
Yeah, and the way Nick explained it is a very good way to present offers to buyers agents for sure. Especially since you're an agent as well. Like just open up a line of communication with them. Especially if you have an agent representing you, they should be the one conversing with the other agent, of course.
Yeah.
But it's just a conversation. It doesn't have to be insulting. Just say like, hey man, like my client wants to buy this property, but he thinks it's a little overpriced. He sent me this spreadsheet. Would your sellers have any interest in this? And they don't need to be. Nobody needs to get up in arms about this stuff. Just it's a yes or no.
Yeah, totally. So you're saying if this deal was presented to you, you might actually invest some money into it.
Yeah,
some money and time.
I like Post Falls. That's a cool neighborhood, and it's a big ass house in Post Falls with a lot of cool potential, I think.
Okay.
What about you? Would you buy that one?
You know what? No. But normally
That's
I would.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just because I don't want to spend the time on it.
Sure.
And that's that. And it's just otherwise, you asked me 2-3 years ago, would I do that deal? Yeah, totally. It fit the criteria. It fit the 30% rule.
Right.
It makes sense to me. I'll do it. But what I've learned over time is that things like this, they take some commitment.
Yeah,
and they take some time. And it's not always just about your return on cash with fix and flips.
Right.
Typically, I find myself at the house working on it eventually.
That's true. Me too.
And it can take a long time, and they become money pits sometimes. I almost always go over budget.
Yeah.
And is it the right time for me in my business with what I'm trying to accomplish this year? I'm just going to pass. But I would take that and I would refer to somebody happily, knowing that, hey, this is a good deal for most people that want to buy this job,
right?
Because it is a job, and it's a job that pays very well.
Yeah, and that's something like I have the time right now. Like I have no projects that I'm actively working on. So that's something where I could invest a lot of my time in, knowing that it would make me money. And again, like if that deal was presented to me, like I would try to get a little bit better negotiation on the price, but I would be interested at that $270 purchase price.
Yeah.
And that's just me, planning like, hey man, I'm not trying to offend you with this offer, but this is kind of where I'd like to be paying. And I'd probably like $240 would be a really sweet spot for me.
$240.
Yeah. Honestly, like having that number over 100.
Just wholesale at that point.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like anything where you're doing a triple digit flip and you're making $100,000 is very appealing to me.
Yeah.
Especially if we have the right contractors and the right people in place where I don't have to do a lot of that. I'm happy to do the work, but I think like I'm at a point where I like to hire it out.
Yeah. And another reason why I said no is because it didn't fit my new criteria. And I invented some new criteria about a year ago or a year or two ago, a year and a half ago, I think it was. And I said, I'm not going to really take on any new fix and flips unless I can buy for around the 150 price point.
Yeah.
And I can fix up for closer to, try to be under 200 ish, maybe slightly over, all in after fix up, and something that should sell for 350
Sure.
ish, in that affordable entry level price point.
Yeah.
That's been kind of my new criteria for flips.
Okay.
The last couple that we did made a lot of sense.
Sure.
I did one in Spirit Lake that we closed down. We made over, we made 6 figures on.
Nice. That's
Made
awesome.
$100,000.
Very cool.
And then that one with you, I think we were going to make $100,000.
Yeah, the
Can't remember
original
where
the
we
original
ended up- we
plan
ended
was to
up
make,
with that.
but I think we
spent
made
a lot more.
60 something like that, which is still okay.
Yeah. But we did good. But like the holding cost wasn't. That's another thing too.
Right.
When you have a property like this, you're spending over $2,300 a month, $2,500 a month in interest only and utilities and that kind of stuff. Like, can you afford to spend that much?
Right.
It's better if you can buy a cheaper property because maybe you're going to make the same profit, but it's only going to cost you $1,000 a month to hold.
Yeah. And that's true, but anything like that, like you're talking about, Nick, would be, those deals don't happen in Post Falls often, but I'm sure you're on the lookout for something like that.
Yeah, it's usually just outside of Post Falls.
Yeah, outside of the Kootenai County area, you go up to Spirit Lake, do that kind of thing. But it's all about location,
Silver
location as well, right? Like your locations, so you're comfortable investing in Silver Valley, Spirit Lake, Bonners Ferry, all these things. A lot of people might not be, and a lot of people might only be analyzing deals in their hometown, which I don't think is the best idea, but it is an idea.
True.
Yeah. So
right.
so you wouldn't deal this one. You wouldn't do this one. I would if it was presented to me in a way where, you can make almost $100,000 is when I think I'd have to get the green light.
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've, and like I said in the past, I would jump on a deal like this all day long. And that was when I was more heavily into the fix and flip game. And I had a project manager and I had contractor employees that I wanted to keep busy.
Right.
Stuff like this just made sense for me at the time until it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So closing out this episode, Nick, what are your top 3 criteria when analyzing a deal? Like what do you look for the first other than your price that you talked about?
I want to, from the day I purchase, I want it to be a good decision to where if I had to sell it, I would make money. And I now, if I'm purchasing a rental property, I don't want what hasn't worked for me great in the past recently is doing like a burr.
Yeah.
Where it takes, 6 months to a year to fix something up to rent it out. And it's just not bringing in any cash.
Right.
And then it takes longer. Rates are unpredictable. And then maybe when you refinance it, you can't kind of pull out the cash that you thought you could, that it just invested. So, when I look for newer deals, I am going to have to venture a little bit out of my backyard, which sucks. But I would prefer to look for stuff that is cash flowing
Yeah. Of
right
course.
away. And there's at least 20% or more of equity.
Right.
Of course, there's going to be some improvements to make, but it's got to be already bringing in income.
I like it. That's awesome. And just with analyzing these properties too, like we analyze these in one way today. So we analyze the first property as a rental. We analyze the second property as a fix and flip. I think the first thing you should do is have your strategy dialed in.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to be a rental owner? Do you want to flip? Do you want to do Airbnb? Do you want to house hack? Like, figure out what you want to do first. That way you can build your criteria around that.
Yeah. What are you gonna have fun with? Because likely what's going to happen is that you're going to be more involved than you think you will on whatever you purchase. So do you enjoy fixing up a property? Or do you enjoy the idea of hosting guests as an Airbnb? Do you enjoy the idea of just having a hands-off rental that a property manager will deal with? You really got to try to, if you haven't done any of these before, start with something small.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, so just to recap again, like what I would do is I would find the strategy you want, I would find the location you want, and then I would find the price in which you're willing to invest, whether your time or money, and then start looking and start crunching numbers.
Start crunching numbers. That's how it's easier to make a decision when you have most of the information on you. Now, the worst thing that you can do is analyze a couple of properties like this. You spend an hour or two to analyze these, and then you do nothing. Now, the next step would be to call this agent and see, is there any chance in hell this seller would be willing to take $280?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And if you need a real estate agent in Idaho, I will say Nick is fantastic at this kind of stuff. Like I'm serious. Like you're so good at talking to these other agents and like breaking that comfort barrier, because a lot of people have their guard up on this stuff. You kind of come in and you're just like, any chance in hell, and you just almost like break the ice a little bit with these agents. Yeah. Like, what are they going to do anyway? But like, you have to have fun with it, and I think that works out really well for you and your clients. So,
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
we do got to get going. I got to run to an appointment. So do you.
Okay, we got appointments today, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Investor Shed podcast. We will see you next week. Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.